Right, hello everybody. Hello, welcome. Thank you so much to everybody for coming to this University Doctoral School Showcase for 2026. It's really wonderful to see so many of you here. My name's Professor Jessica Blair and I'm the Director of the Doctoral School. My absolute pleasure to be here to sort of welcome you all today and to introduce this session. So this is our annual PGR event. It's designed to explore and celebrate all the exceptional research that happens across the university by our postgraduate researchers. And this year, for 2026, our theme is Impact and Innovation. So our aim really is to highlight how postgraduate research across the institution creates innovation and how this research is really translated into lots of real-world impact. And some of that's publication, some of that is influencing policy, informing governments, or applying those transferable skills and research experience to sectors beyond academia. There's a real wealth of that goes on across the institution, and really we're looking forward to hearing all about some of that today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the afternoon's going to run. So we're going to start off with a brilliant keynote panel that I'll introduce in a minute. They're going to open the showcase for us. So these are academics and alumni that are going to share their perspective on our theme this afternoon and talk about how their research and experience has been translated into impact locally and globally. After that, we've also had the research poster competition. It's been a public exhibition. All of the judging for this has happened as well. And there's over 90 posters displayed today, really showing the breadth of all of the research that our brilliant postgraduate researchers have done. So thank you very much to all of the PGRs that have brought their posters to show us their work today. Then later on, we've got the PGR talks. So this year, really delighted that these are being delivered by our 125th anniversary scholars. And they're going to speak to you about the impact of and innovation within Black-led research. So I'm really excited that we're going to hear from them this afternoon. And then finally, we've got the UDS Awards. This is one of the best bits of the year and one of the best bits of being director of the doctoral school, in that I get to come and say well done and congratulations and to celebrate some of that really excellent research and innovative practice across our PGR and research community. So that is happening later on this afternoon. So building on the theme of innovation, 2026 has marked the first year of transforming our Postgraduate Research Festival from a single day event into a month-long series of activity. And an absolute thank you so much to the doctoral school team for organising all of that and running that fantastic work. And really this programme has included workshops, panel discussions, there's been networking sessions and much more. And this is really an important part of our institutional PGR strategy and really making sure that we celebrate our PGR research and drive that forward. So we're going to get going with our first session, and I'm going to introduce our keynote speakers. So thank you very much for joining us today. So we'll go from I suppose left to right. So on the left, we've got Dr. Tom Goodman. So Tom is a director of consulting expert in higher education at CGI. Tom is a University of Birmingham PGR alumnus who completed his PhD in the School of Computer Science in 2021. So welcome back, Tom. So a really exceptional example of research skills, experience and knowledge being translated into societal and local impact outside of conventional academia. He's the CEO and founder of Hack the Midlands, the UK's first 24-hour inclusive creative marathon open to non-students and under 18s, and is a lead organiser on the Tech Mids conference, bringing world-class speakers and technology to Birmingham. He was awarded the British Empire Medal in New Year 2026 Honours List for services to technology in the West Midlands. So thank you very much for joining us, Tom. Thank you. I'll introduce everybody and then we'll let the speakers introduce themselves. So in the middle, we've got Professor Yemisi Takawongi. Thank you so much for joining us. She is the head of the Department of Applied Health Sciences in the College of Medicine and Health. Her research is evidence-based diagnostic and healthcare has informed the World Health Organization recommendations on TB detection. The impact of her research has been recognised through, in 2026, being appointed as an NIHR senior investigator. And in 2024, the Evenfields Black Talent Award, she won the award for Public Sector Services, NHS and Education for her work as a role model for those aspiring to work in STEM, as well as her role leading the NIHR Race Equality and Diversity and Careers Incubator. So thank you very much for joining us. And last but not least, we have Dr. Alana Farrell. So Alana is an assistant professor in the Birmingham Law School and the College of Arts and Law. She also completed her PhD at the University of Birmingham in 2024. So another alumni that stayed around, which is fantastic, studying the regulation of abortion information in Ireland, where her research contributed to the integration of human rights evidence into the WHO abortion care guidelines for 2022. As an assistant professor, Alana's current research focuses on the legacies of censorship in lawmaking in Ireland. She was the winner of the Outstanding Research Impact by an Early Career Researcher at the University of Birmingham Research Impact Awards earlier this year. So we have a round of applause and a thank you to our panel. Okay, so our speakers are going to each speak to you, give you a bit of an introduction to themselves and talk about the subject of impact. So I'm going to hand over, first of all, to Tom. Are you happy to go first?
Yeah, sure, why
Great.
not? So yeah, Jess has done a much better introduction of me than I could do, so I'm not going to bother going back over all of that. But I'm Tom Goodman, PhD here in 2021, maybe 2022, I can't actually remember anymore. And kind of did my undergrad here as well. During that, I founded Hack the Midlands, which Jess touched on. So that was the first hackathon, which is like a creative marathon open to everyone. So it wasn't just for university students, it was for under 18s, it was for non-students as well. And that was kind of a combination of multiple events I'd been to. We ran that all the way until 2023, including 2 years running it, one from my living room during COVID, which we had to kind of like sign the house up as like a track and trace thing because people came and filmed, much like this, but in my living room. And then once from like a thing online during COVID as well. And then more recently as lead organizer of TechMids, which is a conference that's been going on for a few years now, but brings people together from across the tech community in Birmingham to kind of, come and talk. We have 24 speakers in the Everyman. Nice plug, it's running in November this year as well, so please do come along. There are cheaper student tickets. I'll quickly talk about my PhD work. So, what you will see from this is that actually a lot of my impact did not come from my research. So I took a very mathematical approach to the pitch detection of acoustic musical signals. Again, not a huge impact really on people, and we'll come to what I think about impact in general. And then I did my postdoc between Warwick and Birmingham, and I looked at how musicians synchronize with each other when they play an ensemble, which is quite interesting. That's now become a spin-off from UOB. So impact for me is kind of very much about having this tangible impact on the lives of individuals, kind of beyond yourselves. It's about having that kind of multiplicative impact beyond you. Again, I don't think I am the best qualified to talk about traditional routes of impact. You'll see this is a very self-deprecating talk. But my most read paper is the academic dress of the University of Birmingham. Nothing to do with what I did. I wrote this as kind of like a little hobby thing between my undergrad and my PhD. But every year, without fail, parents will read the academic dress of the University of Birmingham, and nobody will read my maths. It is what it is. But fair enough, that is impact by itself. But the thing I will stress is kind of the importance of getting involved in the wider community. So these kind of the other things that are going on. And taking on roles that really on the surface seem disconnected. They seem that they are completely irrelevant to what you've done already, or that your research seems completely irrelevant to. And just being generally curious about picking up those new skills. I mean, pretty much like all of the useful experience I got was from doing other stuff outside of my research. It was going and sitting on boards and just getting involved with things and having that diverse range of experiences that you start to kind of accumulate that then people really value as you go back. So you kind of snowball into things, and do not forget to say no to stuff as well. But it really does snowball as you pick up these skills. So kind of two examples of that, I'd say. One is getting involved in like local communities of practice. So obviously I'm very biased in that I work in tech, so there's often like a kind of local tech community, but going and getting involved in local workshops and meetups and things that are going on, bringing speakers from across the country, across the world, to the local community and putting on these free events for people. I think that's really, really important. If that doesn't already exist, go and set it up, right? I mean, actually doing these things, and if you want help setting up a meetup or something, happy to help, drop me a line after this, or come and chat to me. Doing that is kind of, that's bringing people together, for me, is really, really important. Another part of that is going and kind of sitting on these like governor, trustee, committee type roles where you're doing stuff that it's more on the interpersonal side, but you're also taking these analytical skills, these kind of critical thinking skills that you get from doing your research and applying them to these other bodies of information, and then also supporting stuff that's in the local community that kind of widens your reach. So I'd say like your unique point of view, particularly as like an early career researcher, is really, really important, and actually that's the kind of diversity that people are looking for on boards for charities, etc. Advice, my first bit of advice from very recent experience would be this. If for whatever reason you decide to wear a jumper when it's 20 degrees, wear a shirt underneath that you'd be happy to wear by itself. I've not done this. Get involved, do things outside of your research that are not directly relevant to what your research is at all. Seek out those diverse opportunities and keep doing that, just be curious. And yeah, just do stuff outside of your PhD. Your supervisor will kill me for saying that, but please do not just spend all your time doing your research. Go and just get involved with stuff. And I think that's probably where I'll leave that.
Great, thank you very much.
So on to me then. I'll say a little bit about my career journey. And it is a journey, because when people think about careers, they might think it's linear. Mine, I pretty much took the scenic route. I'm on my third career. My first career, I trained as a vet, practiced for about a year, emigrated to the UK, changed career with family, did an MSc in information technology, and that's actually how I came to work at the University of Birmingham 25 years ago as a trainee analyst programmer in the Birmingham Clinical Trials Unit. And it was while in the trials unit, I got interested in medical statistics. I'd always liked maths. It was my favorite subject in school, and I thought, why not? I'm bored being a programmer. By then, I'd also, become an analyst programmer, senior analyst programmer. And I took study leave, unpaid study leave, but got funding from Pfizer to go and do an MSc in medical statistics in Leicester. Came back to the trials unit. They were happy for me to stay on, but a job came up in a different department, and I took on this research fellow job, which involved the introduction of Cochrane reviews into the Cochrane Library. So Cochrane is a global organization. It's a charity that produces systematic reviews in healthcare. Now, it was introducing Cochrane diagnostic accuracy reviews into the Cochrane Library. That's my area of research, is evaluating medical tests, bringing together the results from multiple studies to inform healthcare policy and practice. So that's how I started. And alongside that role, I wanted to also do a PhD. So that's how I registered for a PhD. So actually, Jess, I'm also Birmingham alumni. I did my PhD alongside my work. Yeah, so that's fantastic, up Birmingham. And I got a fellowship, a doctoral fellowship from the NIHR, that's the National Institute for Health and Care Research, to do my PhD, which I did between 2011 and 2016. So my PhD part-time, I graduated in 2016, and then went on to get a postdoctoral fellowship again from the NIHR. I was asked to take on the role of Institute EDI lead, so I took that on thinking, why am I doing this? And then I started taking on other leadership roles as well and became Institute Deputy Director, and 3 years later, Head of Department. But finishing my PhD in 2016, I got promoted to Senior Research Fellow, and 4 years later, I was promoted to Chair. So that's kind of my research journey in a nutshell. In terms of impact, what impact means to me is simple. It's about making a difference. And you can make a difference in a variety of ways. You can make a difference to an individual, you can make a difference to a whole community or the entire world. Now, I've been very fortunate. When I was a doctoral fellow, I also met a urologist who was doing also his NIHR doctoral fellowship at the time, and we've become lifelong collaborators. He's a urologist. His research is in diagnosis of prostate cancer. And at one NIHR conference, we read each other's bios. He got in touch, and I provided support for his research, became study statistician on a prostate cancer trial called Precision that went on to change national and international practice overnight on how we diagnose men with prostate cancer. That led to the introduction of MRI-targeted biopsy instead of the traditional of ultrasound-guided biopsy. It meant that fewer men went on to get biopsies, because if the MRI identifies a suspicious area, then only those people go on to get a biopsy. If there's no suspicious area, then nothing. And then in my work with the WHO that I introduced earlier, I'm very passionate about tuberculosis because it's a curable and preventable disease, yet it kills 3,500 people every day. And so whatever I can do in my capacity to improve the diagnosis of TB so that people get treatment earlier, break the chain of transmission, I'll do it. So that's how I got involved with the WHO Global TB program, doing evidence reviews that go on to inform practice. And initially I was working on reviews for children, but now working across the breadth of it. So again, going to Geneva and sitting in that room, recommendations being made that influence, the diagnosis of TB across the world, it's been a real privilege to be involved in that. So that's kind of think about that's traditional impact. The other thing that's very close to my heart is about capacity building. And all through my career, right from being an early career researcher, whether that's acting as a STEM ambassador, going into schools to inspire children to go into maths and statistics, or, as again, going through my career, inspiring early career researchers, showing them, what they can achieve either in academia or outside of academia. So that's how I took on the national role of leading the NIHR's Race, Equity and Diversity in Careers Incubator to support the careers of people from racially minoritized background. And I continue to champion that, mentor people around the world to, again, build capacity in my research area while also developing the next generation of researchers. So impact outside academia, that's part of it. And in terms of advice for current PGRs and researchers, I do agree with you, Tom, believe it or not. As a supervisor, I encourage people, get out there. Learn more beyond just what you've come here to research. When you leave University of Birmingham, leave with more than a degree. Leave with relationships, leave with peer networks, leave with new skills, new interests. There's a whole world. The university is such a large community and we're in a vibrant city. So, make the most of the opportunities here. Believe it or not, I started organizing CPD courses for people to learn how to do meta-analysis of diagnostic accuracy studies, which is what my PhD was all about, based on the fact that I'd been organizing social events for groups in church, also organizing the annual awards evening for my daughter's athletics club. So all of those skills of organizing things outside of work was what I used to then start organizing events and activities within work and within research, whether that's bringing people from different parts of the world together. So if you take away nothing from anything that I've said, it's embrace opportunity and leave Birmingham with more than what you brought to Birmingham.
Oh, that's brilliant, thank you. Alana, over to you.
Thank you so much, everybody. So I'm Alana, and I was really delighted to be asked to come here today, because for me, impact is what research is all about. It's what I'm really, really passionate about. And now today I'm going to take a really loose definition of impact. For me, I think similar to my colleagues here, it is about making a difference, either on the broader scale or to an individual who you have in front of you. So that's how I'm going to frame it today. And I think you've already started your impact work. I mean, you're doing research, you're doing, a PhD because you have realized that there is a gap somewhere, an unmet need, there's questions to be answered. And by doing that, you are going to make an impact in the world. And this is what happened to me. I was working full time. I wasn't in academia at the time. When I went to look for a book on the history of abortion censorship in Ireland, the book didn't exist. So I said, well, why don't I go and write it? So that's why I went back and did my PhD in that topic. So that book now exists and it's out there. So that's like that one little bit of impact. So you're already laying the foundation for a difference that you're going to make in the world. And then depending then on how you build on that, that's going to be up to, well, your findings, maybe you already have quite an impact-directed PhD, or maybe on your motivations. Where do you see, what do you want to do next? Where do you want your research to shape? So already you're building those wonderful foundations for impact work. The next thing is that a PhD, well, depending on what it is, but in law, we have quite a lot of flexibility in our PhDs. We've got a lot of time and a lot of space. And what that means is that we have the opportunity to react to things as they happen. And I would encourage you to embrace those things that you see happening in the world around you, especially when they are related to your PhD work. So the example that I gave was about a year into my PhD. The government in Ireland announced they were going to hold a referendum on the law that I was studying. So I was able, thanks to being a PhD candidate, to go back to Ireland for a month to actually engage in campaign work. So I went back, it was very grassroots, having conversations on doorsteps, having conversations on the street, but it was my PhD research that I was essentially talking about, talking to people about law, how it operates, the impact that it has. So it was a very applied way of me taking the law from the statute book, from the studies, and actually engaging with people in real time. And the referendum did pass, ultimately, which we were delighted about. How much our little group walking the streets, had on that, it's hard to say. Obviously, sometimes impact is difficult to capture in terms of that. But I know that when having those conversations with those individuals, they expressed gratitude and thanks for having a space where they could ask questions, have informative, non-judgmental conversations where they could ask questions about the law and about the referendum. And I think for me, that was a really important piece of impact that I used my PhD work for. And I'm really delighted I had that opportunity. And if you ever get that opportunity, I would say, go for it, engage with policymakers, engage in whatever it is. And if you see it, go for it. Your PhD work is important out in the world. So get stuck in, is what I would say. What you know is valuable. And then another thing I have to say I really agree with in terms of the PhD years is that when I came into my PhD, I wanted what, for want of a better term, I called a holistic experience. So it wasn't just about the thesis. I wanted to, make connections with people, get stuck into projects that I may not otherwise have access to. Now being in the university, I could meet people and do different things. So alongside my PhD, I did work part-time. I did some teaching, and I did a lot of research assistant and associate roles. And I guess the one that has really, that had the biggest impact was my work on doing some systematic reviews as part of a team at Birmingham Law School. And those systematic reviews then fed into the WHO's abortion care guideline, where we looked at legal barriers to abortion access around the world. So that was a part-time job that I did alongside my PhD work. And it was really impactful. We're still tracking and tracing the work, and we can see that it's being cited by medics, advocates, legislators all around the world as, the piece of evidence that they go to when considering law reform. So it's probably the most important piece of work I might ever do, maybe, but I'm very proud of it. And again, that came from a part-time job. So I'll say, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, go for opportunities like that. I had never done a systematic review before, but you know what? I can learn, and I did, and we did a great job. So I would say, the same for you. And actually, if there's any senior academics in the room actually as well, I will say, please give your opportunities to your PhD students. I would not have had that role had it not been for my incredible PhD supervisors who put me in contact with people looking for research assistants who offered me opportunities like that. So please, senior academics, your PhD students would be so grateful for those opportunities. And then in terms of what I'm doing now, post-PhD, impact work, and I guess this is actually quite relevant for you all, is that impact work really forms a bedrock of research design and study design. Thinking about things of how are you actually going to address your research questions? Well, impact can be a key part that you design in from the start, and actually I think should be there. So thinking about things like, where is impact work needed? Where should I direct my attention? Because you only have a limited amount of time, a limited amount of projects in your career. Where can I make the difference that I want to make and I see that it needs to be made there? Also, what benefits am I bringing to the communities or the participants that I'm looking to engage with? If they're being generous with their time and their wisdom, I want to make sure that I am also delivering something back, which I think is that impact needs to come two ways, I think. And also, so while you can never be quite sure the impact will come from a project, at least you've set yourself up for that when those opportunities arise, you are really taking the best shot at it, and you've got the best shot of really making a difference through those projects. And then the last thing I'll say is, on this point, is that impact and engagement work doesn't just, again, have to come through the research design, even if you are still in the university. I volunteer outside of the university. I'm a talk line coordinator for the charity Abortion Talk, where again, I apply my PhD work and my current knowledge to actually directly assisting people on a phone line. I do it once a month, so getting people to the services they need, having conversations to combat stigma, etc. So it's from the very big, designing the research to target policymakers, but again, right back down to having those conversations with individuals where you can really feel that you've made a difference. And then the last point I want to make is if you're sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, I've just signed up to be a PhD, that's enough work. I'm working part-time, I'm doing paid work, I've got caring responsibilities, I've got health conditions that I'm managing, how am I meant to do all of this? I will say, don't panic. Nobody's PhD journey is the same. You do not have to mirror anybody's career or anybody's journey. You will find the path for you. And as an example, it took me 7 years to do my PhD. I started full-time, I ended up going part-time, I took leave in the middle of it, all sorts of things. But that was my particular journey. You will find the one that works for you, your life, your family, and what you want to achieve. The thing that is trickiest is dealing with that internal saboteur or that imposter who will tell you, you're not the expert, you don't know anything. No, you do. You know it. You're going to be the expert in this if you are not already the expert in it. So embrace those opportunities and know that you can go forward and make a difference. And yeah, I'm going to finish there. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for those introductions. And I think we've just heard really about some really different types of impact, which has been really, really fascinating. But I think one of the core themes that you all brought out was that it being about making a difference and that using what you're doing to make a difference to the world. And some of that was policy, some of it was capacity building, all sorts of different ways, and that was great. And I think the second thing you all sort of said in a slightly different way was about diversity of experience being important, right? And trying to capture experience outside of perhaps your immediate research while you're here. So really interesting to hear that while your experience is so different, there's clearly themes that came out, so that's great. So I'm going to open it to the floor for questions. Has anybody got any questions for our panel? Shall I kick off with one while everybody thinks? So we a couple of you sort of touched on this, and because there's different types of impact and different ways we can think about it, have you got any tips or sort of any thoughts on how we can recognise impact and perhaps how we can capture that as we go? So I feel like if you sit back and try to reflect on impact across a big period of time, that can be hard. Should we be capturing it as we go along? Have you got any thoughts?
I suppose one way could be creating some sort of folder where you put some of that information, whether it's somebody writing to say thank you because you did X, Y, Z and it made this difference to them, then you could store it there. Because I remember when the work that we had done around diagnostic accuracy reviews, the introduction of the reviews into the library, the methods work and everything we'd done. And the impact team told us, you need testimonials. So I had to go back to someone who previously worked at the WHO and ask him can he say something about what the evidence reviews that we've done and the work that we've done, what that meant to his work in the WHO, and even now that he was now working with something around migration, and he gave us that testimonial, which we used as part of that. We also looked at the WHO Global TB report as well to be able to look at, okay, since the introduction of this test, how many of these tests have been sold, how many people have gone on to get tested, and how many lives have been saved. So different pieces of information bringing together, because yes, you can have the statistics, but sometimes it's those qualitative statements that really bring the impact to life of, what is made, the difference is made to a particular community or to how you do your work and so on. So now, even just thinking about the different things that I do around capacity building too, is like, oh yes, that person who I mentored or supported, they've now got, maybe they've got a job, they've got promoted, or they've got a fellowship. I'm saving all of those things to show that, I'm not just wasting my time mentoring people, but actually it is making a difference. including changing your career if you want to.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess kind of looking back and actually reflecting on what you've just said, it's about getting that timely feedback, kind of consistently taking it at the point at which you're delivering these things that have impact, and then using that to shape the kind of future work you do that then has impact going forwards.
Yeah, I agree. I've got what I call a folder of happiness where I put in all of my praise, and I am shameless. If somebody says verbally, thanks, that was really helpful, I'll say, can you please email that to me? And you know what, people are always delighted to do it. And then I build that up and I keep it there because I know as soon as I go looking for it, I won't be able to find anything. So I do this for my teaching, I do it for everything. But people are usually very happy to help. But the other thing I'd like to say is, as well, when you are doing that kind of gathering, you know, think about your audience. Who are you collecting this for? Is it for a job panel? Is it for a funder? Who is it for? Because that all could be very different in terms of what they want you to capture. So I know for some sites, you know, we'll be collecting like quotes from parliamentary debates where our research was mentioned, or changes in the law. Or otherwise it might be, you know, testimony from advocates saying we've used this piece here. So it's all very different. So make sure that you know your audience, why you're collecting what you're collecting, and you absolutely do it as you go along. Put a Google alert on your name and, you know, collect it. Because as I said, at the end, it's always, when these things go wild, it's great and you'll never track it down retrospectively. So.
Brilliant, thank you. Has anybody else got a question? We've got one at the top back corner.
Thank you so much. Is it on?
So the mic is actually for the YouTube feed, so if you can try and speak up, and if it's not clear, we could repeat the question.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to appreciate the panel. My name is Patsan, but you can call me Pat, and I'm a first year PGR. My question is basically on what will be the advice in terms of positioning ourselves. I'm looking at myself as a first year student, and when I'm looking at the market itself, in terms of the job market, the academia, I've got a civil society background, there are quite a lot of challenges. And then at the same time, you are engaging in this challenging journey of a PhD, and at the same time, you are also thinking to say, then what next if I'm done? You know, you're looking at the global challenges, universities, financial problems. You're looking at funding at global level, job cuts, and you know, there's all of these things that are going on that also come into you as a PhD student to say, okay, when I'm done, then what? So what would be your best advice in terms of trying to be able to remain relevant, to say, as the journey continues, also try to strategically position yourself in this way, looking at the experience that you already have, and where do you think what we could do? Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I guess I'll start if you want. Yeah,
Sure.
so I think the most important thing that employers are looking for when you come out of your PhD is that you haven't just come and done your PhD. And that touches on everything all of us have just said. It's about going and just finding those other opportunities. So if that is volunteering somewhere, if that is taking on part-time work, if that is, you know, starting an event, or just doing something that's not your research, that really shines through when you go for like a job interview. And also, like, it equips you with the skills to engage with that interview in a very different way. I think, you know, if you've gone through and you've just done your research, I mean, there's nothing to sniff at, but like you're not equipped with the same like interpersonal skills, the same kind of, yes, some of the analytical skills, but maybe not actually what they're looking for the job, and these other things. So do just go and engage with things. And if you can't find them, make those opportunities. So, you know, if you can't find them, I think actually, as Alana touched on completely, you can just go and make those opportunities exist. Really quite inexpensively, like put a talk on, put an event on, just do something, engage with your peers.
I think increasingly at the university, and certainly within my team and my department, PGRs are very much embedded. We see you as part of the staff, even though we might be called students. You are postgraduate researchers, so in that sense, we bring you in, embed you, and make you feel like you are part of the team. So you get those experiences of, you know, working as part of a research group in a university. And I think it's very important as well to become part of something. So for me, early on was being part of Cochrane, being part of this global organization that has members from 193 countries, put me right in the middle of, what was happening in evidence synthesis in the world. And particularly in my area of diagnostic accuracy, made me an expert very quickly on a global stage so that people came to me. I didn't have to even go to people. So I think being part of a relevant professional network, whether that's, and then there's some student spin-offs of some professional networks as well that you can join. If you have the opportunity to go to conferences, to present, engage, you never know who you will meet there, who might just be like, oh, actually, I have a position that would be coming up soon. And I think, oh, maybe they've heard you speak, they're impressed, and then you get invited. So certainly just put yourself out there and be brave. You will get some knockbacks, but all you need is one yes. You might have 100 no's, but it's just that one yes. And it might come with the first thing or the 100th thing.
Yeah.
And impact work, has incredible transferable skills that will be so attractive to employers. Things like you seeing a problem and you going and tackling it is huge. Project management skills, having some form of measurability, being able to go in and say, I want to address X, and this is the evidence for how I did it, and these are the results, is incredible. You learn new skills. I mentioned that I learned to do systematic reviews that, is not offered in a law school curriculum because but I learned how to do that. So there's things as well, if you're engaging with communities, how to do focus groups, how to do maybe feedback, all of these things can form a part of evidence gathering and impact work. And no matter what sector you go for, all of those skills are so wanted by employers. So really you can build your portfolio of skills and then adapt that then based on the direction that you want to go in. It will really give you a really lovely foundation for that job hunt.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, we've got time for one more question if someone has got one. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this great opportunity, explaining to us how we can handle things. So I am Vincent, a first year PGR in the School of Computer Science, and my question is to the panel. Like, we got a suggestion we should go out, like try new things, maybe interacting at the church and so on. And I am asking a question like, how do you do this? Because I'm only focusing on my research and I'm already struggling to manage my time. So I'm asking how you do, if I can get some advice on how to manage efficiently the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to go first?
You're going to go first, okay. Time, we never have enough of time, do we? And my daughter, when she was at uni, and she's an athlete, she trains a lot, and she was reading lots of books. I think she read almost 100 books 1 year or the other. And I said to her, how do you find time to do all of this? And she said, it's about priority. Because she was like, I've come off social media, I don't do this, I don't do that, So it's about prioritizing, find out what's important to you. So there's your research, but then also think about how are you spending the time that you're not using for research, and also the time that you spend doing your research, are there things that you can also improve on in terms of efficiency? And also be aware that when we say find opportunities, we're not saying always be on the hunt for opportunities. It might be that year one is so busy. You've just come here, you're settling into a new environment, you're getting to grips with your PhD, you're getting to know the people around you, so that might not be the right time. But maybe year two, things are going smoothly, and that's when you then are starting to look around and go, oh, okay, there's opportunity here. Or your supervisor might have noticed something about you and go, oh, there's this opportunity, I think this will be right for you. So, there are different ways that this will come about. Or I had one person in my team who actually there was an opportunity came up to be a lecturer for a few months. And so he put his PhD on pause to take on that role and then carry on. So, there'll be different ways that this will come in, but don't beat beat yourself up and be like, oh, they've said I need to go and do all these amazing things. But, you know, just be you, and when the time is right, you will know.
Yeah, and I guess don't be afraid to carve time out just to go and do stuff outside of your research. So if there are events on, I know there are events on in computer science because there is a fantastic community there. Go and engage with them, talk to people, meet people who are kind of outside of your research group, who are doing other things in the school, who are doing stuff outside of the school, and go to these events. Like, take the time, because actually through meeting those people, through kind of forming those connections, those opportunities, you're just more likely to see them coming. So it becomes very much like a passive thing after a while, where you build your network up and then opportunities kind of just come closer to you because of the people you know.
One of the things about doing the PhD is not just doing the research, it's like learning how to be a researcher. So you will develop the skills over time where you will be able to do that time organization and build your research strategy and approach. It will take a few years of trial and error, but you will get there. And in terms of strategy, I will say, if you can, make whatever task you do more than one job for you. So for example, my PhD work, I was researching abortion information. I then used that information when I was talking to people doing the grassroots campaigning. When I was doing the WHO work, I was doing those reviews for that project, but I was also integrating that into my literature review for my PhD. So if you can, any piece of writing, any conference, any networking event, try and make it do more than one job for you. And you can also have a folder where you can keep everything, and then in the future, if somebody asks you to do something, you can say, yes, here it is, ta-da, and it's great. So yeah, that would be my advice on that strategy.
Brilliant. Thank you so much to our panel this afternoon. I think that's been incredibly useful insights into how we can use our research or build upon our research to really find impact in three very different stories, but with really similar themes. So thank you so much. Okay. So now we have our research poster competition, which you probably passed as you came in. So please do go and have a look at all the brilliant posters that are down there. Thank you very much, everybody.